It's Wednesday, May 18th, and this is CT Pulse on the HAN Network. I'm Kate Czaplinski, as always, with my co-host Josh Fisher.
Hi, Kate.
Hi, Josh. Well, of course, today we'll be talking a lot of Connecticut politics, some of the week's most interesting news, and of course, later in the show, Doug Smith, our editorial cartoonist, will give us his take on some of the week's news. So we'll be sure to check that out.
Yes, but first we have a special guest by phone today, Christine Stewart of CT News Junkie, a website that, if you don't know, features extensive and original reporting on state politics, public policy, and more, is on the phone. Christine, thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So you have a lot going on in Hartford as usual, but some of the bigger news to come out in the past week is that the Speaker of the House, Brendan Sharkey, is not going to run for re-election. What's been the reaction up in Hartford about that?
Yeah, so that was kind of year. He had made some noise and had been shoring up the support for a third term as Speaker. So, it was kind of unusual that, suddenly he decided, I'm just not going to run for re-election for my House seat, which means obviously he can't be Speaker. So Joe Arasimowicz, who is the majority leader, is going to run for Speaker, and then there's a little bit of a contest for his position that he's vacating between Tony Walker of New Haven and Matt Ritter of Hartford. So what they haven't decided yet is an election year, and what happens is whoever is the Speaker and majority leader, they lead the re-election efforts of their members in the House and any new Democrats who are running for seats. So what's kind of up in the air is who is actually going to be running those re-election campaigns.
Wow. And Christine, you mentioned in this story that this makes him the 22nd lawmaker and the most powerful to opt out of seeking another term in 2016. Is this higher than normal in past years that you've covered election seasons?
I think that it was about the same last year. Like, it started with a trickle, but the number of lawmakers retiring has definitely increased. And I mean, who wants to deal with another, whoever gets elected is going to be dealing with a $1.6 billion deficit when they get elected. And, in Connecticut, it's only a part-time job. So these people who are signing up to go run for office and, basically work as a lawmaker in addition to working whatever job they do part-time too, or full-time for that matter, is only going to get paid $28,000 a year. So it's pretty much a thankless position.
Yeah, and Speaker of the House has to be even more than your average representative.
Yes, no, definitely. Speaker of the House does get paid a little bit more. I think it's about $43,000 for the year, but it's not much. I mean, basically, I kind of describe what the Speaker of the House and the Majority Leader do as herding cats. And what's interesting is that Speaker Sharkey and Governor Malloy, even though they're from the same party, have clashed recently over various things regarding the budget. So you've seen kind of the power struggle between the two branches of government there.
So do you think that has he given a real formal reason besides I want more time for my personal life and my business for why he's not going to seek re-election?
No, I mean, I think that was it. I think that, I think he kind of got to a point where, his big policy issue was municipal efficiencies and kind of reforming the property tax system in Connecticut. Mm-hmm. And even in a year, the past 2 years where there hasn't been a lot of revenue, he hasn't been able to get that accomplished. And he really wanted to get that accomplished, which is why he wanted to seek a second term. But then he said, I also have to really think about whether the policy reason is why I want to seek another term, or is it really because of ego? So he was honest about asking himself those questions. And I think that, he decided that it was, it wasn't really necessarily the policy reasons. And also, his business and his family, his business has, suffered a little bit in the recession, and, he's lost a few clients because he can't have them because he's a lawmaker. And he's got a stepdaughter that's about to go off to college.
Now,
so those were the other reasons.
I did notice you had a story this week, and it involved Brendan Sharkey talking about Malloy's Second Chance Society initiative. There's been a lot of coverage of that this week. What's going on with that? It seems like they're really trying to drum up support, and a lot of that support's not there right now.
Yeah, so that is that's a tough one. So obviously people who are up for re-election don't want to look like they're soft on crime.
Right.
And that's some of what, this bill would allow people who are up to the age of 20 to have their cases heard in the juvenile court system, which would mean that whatever crimes they committed would not be known to the public because it wouldn't have to be reported, and the court proceedings for those people would be closed. But there's also, Brendan Sharkey says that he supports it, but at the same time, he's telling the governor, because it's the governor's initiative, that, you got to make sure that the votes are there in my caucus if you want me to call the bill. And we already know that in the Senate it's going to be a tie vote, and obviously the president of the Senate is Lieutenant Governor Nancy Wyman, and she would obviously break the tie in favor of Second Chance. But the House is a little bit more difficult to count. You have 87 members, and we know that all the Republicans, there's 64 Republicans, are going to vote against it. So, how many Democrats, do they have enough votes? It's going to be a really slim margin.
Now, Christine, kind of moving on, you've been covering a very bizarre social media story that happened last week. It started after U.S. Senate candidate and former Olympian August Wolf did not earn enough support at the Republican convention to primary. And at the time, House Minority Leader Themis Claridis had nominated State Representative Dan Carter, and she was quoted in a news story as saying, "I didn't think that a skill set for U.S. Senator was being a shot putter." And he slammed back with something that shocked a lot of people. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so he tweeted back a photo of Themis from her WWE Ring Girl days. It had to be more than 20 years ago now. And I forget exactly what he said, but it was questioning her credentials to be the head of the Republican caucus in the House. And, this is really interesting. I was actually floored when I covered the Republican convention. I've covered several of these over the years, and I was floored that August Wolf was standing on the side as the voting was happening. Him and his team were just kind of sitting there as the vote went to Dan Carter. So instead of going out and talking to delegates and, delegates who are about to vote and cast their vote, he just kind of stood there. And I guess, I don't know if it was a misunderstanding of how to run a convention or, if he got some bad advice from his staff. But now he's looking to go out and petition his way onto the ballot, and he needs to collect more than 8,079 signatures, which is a really, really tough thing to do. Because I think that we saw with Joe Visconti and Jonathan Pelto, who had to go collect signatures to try to get on the ballot. Jonathan didn't get on the ballot, Joe Visconti did. But so each signature form, so each town has to have its own signature form, and so you can go out to a supermarket, but if that supermarket, if a bunch of people from 5 or 6 different communities show up, they have to sign a specific different form and submit that to the Register of Voters office. So this all has to happen before June 7th.
Wow.
So it's a really, really tough climb.
It does seem too like it's really not a necessarily a fair process for it's something that seems to certainly protect establishment candidates. I know that's something that a case that Mr. Wolf has been making in his various tweets that he's been putting out there.
Yes, there's been all kinds of interesting tweets he's been putting out there.
Selfies and old photos.
I think it was nice to see, though, that a lot of people, and I know you mentioned in your story, Republicans started a meme, #StandWithThemis. And a lot of people, even Brendan Sharkey saying misogyny a disqualifier for any candidate of any party. So a lot of folks definitely had her back on this. I have a hard time believing that, say, Dan Carter used to be a male model. I have a hard time believing that August Wolf would have looked up his photo from his modeling days and tweeted something about it. I do think, it was a misogynistic move, in my opinion. And, Themis Claridis has also been a state rep since '98, so she has a long, political history in the area. But
she has, and I mean, she really worked to get to where she was, and she was elected by a group of her peers to lead that Republican caucus.
Right.
So she has put in the time and she has put in the effort. She did say to me that, that photo was circulated when she first ran for office, but it has, it had since disappeared for the most part.
Right, and she's not hidden that she used to be a model and a WWE ring girl. It's not something that she's tried to swipe under the rug or anything. So,
but do you think, Christine, in this where we've had Donald Trump's about to become the nominee of the Republican Party, and he certainly has not been heard, at least in the primaries throughout the nation, by being a misogynist and by insulting people and having this really brash attitude. Can you blame somebody like August Wolf for thinking that that's a way to the hearts of Republicans here in Connecticut?
Yeah, I think that is gonna that's probably going to fail in Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that plays well with the voters here in Connecticut, even though 60% of the voters in Connecticut do support Trump.
Right.
I think it was only four towns in the primary went to Kasich,
yeah.
But I just don't see that is going to that kind of rhetoric and that kind of campaign is going to play well with Connecticut voters.
And speaking of Trump, what's the feeling among the legislators who are all up for re-election this year about, on both sides of the aisle, about how Trump's nomination will hurt or help them?
I think they believe that it's definitely going to help them. I think for the first time,
Republicans believe that?
Republican candidates really stand a chance here. I think that they could do very well, and I think it's possible that they could at least take back. They're going to make the margin much smaller in the House, and possibly they could take the Senate for the first time since I don't know.
Like
they had the House in '84.
Yeah.
They had the Senate for like 1 year back in I think '94.
Oh, that's right. When Roland was in, right? Or was it when Walker was in? Yeah. Whatever. That's because they have been inching away at those big majorities that the Democrats had toward the end of Governor Rell's term, slowly and surely. But of course, people thought too that Romney was going to help, and they did. I guess Romney did help at least down ticket, you could say, some of the House races here. But he didn't have a shot against Obama 4 years ago. And obviously, do the Democrats or everyone still is on the Hillary team?
Oh, as far as the Democratic side, yeah, they're definitely on the Hillary team.
Yeah.
I really do think that Trump could help because I think you look back to 2008, and 2008 is when Obama first ran for office, and that's when the Democrats in the House and the Senate were able to have a supermajority.
Right.
So they had something like 114 seats in the House, and they had at least 24 seats for a few months in the Senate. So it was, I think that Trump can help Republicans do that this year, more than Romney. I feel like he's obviously more of a personality, more of a draw. I think people are more motivated to go out to polls and vote for him.
That's a good point.
Well, Christine, what else are you working on this week that people should check out at ctnewsjunkie.com?
I guess we have to figure out whether we are going back into special session. So as an assurance policy to come back and vote on the second chance proposal, the House did not vote on the bonding bill, which has school construction money in it. So the House will at least need to return for the school construction portion of it. Whether they do second chance or not is still up in the air. We also have to look towards, I would say probably towards the middle of June, there's the possibility of a veto session, and Governor Malloy is signing legislation every day, so we're looking and monitoring that. He hasn't had any vetoes yet, so it should be interesting to see whether he does veto. There was a 3D mammography bill that he has hinted that he would veto because he believes the cost is too much to the states.
Well, Christine, thanks so much for joining us today. You do an awesome job, ctnewsjunkie.com. I know you keep us informed all the time, and we really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks so
Christine.
much. All right, well, we're going to step out for a break. When we come back, we're going to go over some of the stories that we're following this week. Josh, we'll be back with more CT Pulse right after this.
It's time to come back to hometown banking, where people are taken into account, not just balances, where community comes first, a place where there's more than one kind of interest, where automation will never replace consideration, where they not only know your name, they know your dog's name too. It's time to expect more. It's time to bank well. Bank smart. Bank local. Bank well.
Alberto Londano Professional Painting, Wallpapering, and Carpentry has been serving Fairfield County for over 20 years. Based in Norwalk, Alberto takes pride in his work by offering you only the best quality service and products. Call Alberto today to get a free estimate and be one step closer to a new and exciting home makeover. 203-866-9635.
I'm Kate Czaplinski. Join us for Coffee Break, weekdays at 11 to get the latest Connecticut news, weather, high school sports, and more. News doesn't get any more local than on Coffee Break on the HAN network.
You are watching the HAN network, and you're not alone. Nearly 500,000 viewers enjoyed our broadcasts in the first 5 months. Advertise on the network that reaches Fairfield County, Connecticut's most engaged audience. Contact Jessica Murrin, Advertising Director, at 203-273-7312 or email jessica@han.network.
I think what makes ONS special is that it has everything that makes academic medicine great. We have the fellowship-trained specialists, but we still bring the style and type of medicine that's indicative of a community practice.
We are all trained in our area of interest and expertise, so our patients see a doctor who specializes in their particular injury.
I did have 2 consults with major New York City hospitals, but I just felt that the care was best here. I was treated like a rock star. The surgery exceeded any expectations that I had.
And we're back on CT Pulse on the HAN network. Kate Czaplinski with Josh Fisher, talking about some of the stories that we're following this week. It hasn't been a very slow news week. There's been a lot going on.
No, there's certainly a lot going on,
Coffee
and we
Break.
talked about a lot of it, of the stories that we're following with
Yeah.
with Christine of CT Junkie just moments ago.
News Junkie.
CT News Junkie,
Yes.
not CT Junkie. I was thinking
No,
of that.
that's the other thing. I mean, we
I
can
was
talk
thinking of
about
that
that.
big heroin bust that happened on the Marriott.
There
So
was
you happened
a
to
big
you
heroin
went
bust.
by
I
it,
actually
right?
drove by it. We talked about this on Coffee Break, but nearly $1 million worth of, more than they said, more than $1 million. I believe it was 28 pounds
Yeah.
of heroin. It was a man who they said was based in Chicago, Illinois, and they said he was stopped for a moving violation. I have a feeling that that kind of pull doesn't happen accidentally. I have a
See, they're
feeling.
following him. But see, I
Yeah.
think this is a reason why we should have tolls in Connecticut. Because think of how much, if that guy's carried, what much was it, $1 million worth of heroin? And then we could just be like, leave a bag here, and then maybe, we could start selling it for the government, and then we could start covering up that deficit that Connecticut has.
Yeah.
We're doing Keno. Keno is in full-fledged in Connecticut now.
You
and
should talk to Rudy Marconi years ago. He
And
was-
make, I know, but like, look at, so the state is making money off of degenerate gamblers who like to go to the early morning bars. God bless them. I'm jealous of them maybe sometimes that they get to go sit in a bar and bet on numbers all day long. Why don't the state start selling heroin? Everyone's doing it
jeez.
nowadays. I'm not. It'd be a great way, $1 million right
Oh,
there
boy.
for the deficit.
Oh boy! And we actually do have a great interview last week with Silver Hill Hospital on the growing heroin epidemic. You could check that out at han.network for some real
You did
information
that, not me,
instead of us being silly. But in some other news we're following, Josh. I kind of, some interesting news, good news. Governor
news?
Daniel Malloy signed legislation expanding the state's medical marijuana program to include minors. We talked about how that passed the House and the Senate. I know there was a lot of celebrations for some of the families who have children with very severe medical issues, and Governor Malloy just signed it into
Yeah, that's
law.
great. Something, obviously, if you watched this show before, we've been dealing with
about
this
it.
long before the show even existed.
That's right.
in Shelton, this young man, Edmund Conklin, died in a rollover crash on Bridgeport Avenue earlier this year. And he would have graduated from Shelton High, right? And the school's not going to give him the diploma at the ceremony. They want to do it at the award ceremony, and that has his parents upset.
Right, that's caused some controversy. I don't know what it is with Shelton High, but they make these edicts, and then it leads to a lot of backlash. I mean, we saw something similar with the James Tate prom controversy,
right,
where they just wanted to hold firm on this idea. When there was so much backlash, it's like, what is the harm of giving the posthumous diploma at the graduation ceremony? I don't know what their reasoning is behind that. They haven't really said. I think what did get lost in the story, because there has been an online petition circulating, some people think that the school doesn't want to award any honorary diploma. That's not true. They do. They want to do it for Ed and for Christian Noge, who as a sophomore was shot and killed, that unsolved murder in Shelton, still under investigation. He would have graduated this year. That's how long ago it was. So they do want to award the honorary diplomas, which I think is really nice. But I'm not sure why they're holding so firm to not wanting to do it at graduation. And it's leading to a lot of backlash. I know the family has gone on, interviewed with some radio shows and some television shows about it. So it's unfortunate. It's just kind of interesting watching that play out, but I'm not sure why they're holding back.
I mean, and to me, it would make sense. The family would want to maybe go to graduation like they've been planning to go in, for the past 17 years, 18 years, and celebrate their child, and with all of his peers.
Right. So there is more on that story at SheltonHerald.com, but we'll see what happens with that. Graduation season coming up. And something you've been following, Josh.
Well, this is it's speculation season right now, and when it comes to politics, of course, who's going to be the VP is obviously the big one right now. And USA Today had a big story about all the different potential vice presidents to run with Hillary Clinton. And Chris Murphy, our freshman senator here from Connecticut, who was elected in 2014, made the list, which is kind of amazing. And he got only one line. Some people like Elizabeth Warren got much more space. But it says Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut billed himself during his campaign as a, quote, fresh progressive voice. So the idea here, too, is they're thinking that Hillary would go with someone who would bring in all the Bernie Sanders supporters, the more farther left-wing end of the Democratic Party, which Chris Murphy certainly is a part of. And I think it'd be pretty, I doubt it would happen. And it might make me rethink my vote as a Clinton Republican, Kate, to vote for Hillary Clinton if she chooses Chris Murphy. But it's another freshman senator who has little experience to be one heartbeat away from the presidency. I don't know how much sense that makes, but that's, everyone has to fill up their newspapers and dot their pixels and everything on the computers. So that kind of caught my attention.
Well, a nice Chris Murphy story that I just want to mention that Michael Katarivas actually worked on this week.
This is a nice Chris Murphy story, too.
Wrote a handwritten letter to a young boy in New Canaan. I actually didn't put, we had a great photo. It's on ncadvertiser.com.
What was it about?
So the little boy is now in remission from, he had lymphoma, and he wrote the senator and Vice President Joe Biden about how he wants more money for cancer research, and Chris Murphy, touched by his letter, wrote him back and said that, he'll fight harder now having this young man as his inspiration. So very nice. Very cool. Nice little community story. But that's at ncadvertiser.com, so you can check it out there. Well, Josh, we are going to step out for a break and come back with Doug Smith. We're going to look at this week's editorial cartoons.
Draw some conclusions.
All right. Coming up after this.
Walter Stewart's Market in New Canaan is your time-saving local shopping destination for the best of spring. Find many of your favorite products, from great specials on everyday items to the freshest organic produce, artisanal cheeses, and grass-fed steaks. Drop off your knives to be sharpened, grab a beautiful bouquet of spring flowers, and stop in next door for a wine tasting. Plus, their personable staff is always ready to lend a helping hand. So stop in to Walter Stewart's Market, 229 Elm Street today, or shop online at stewartsmarket.com.
Can't wait for it to get warmer so you can start fishing again? Get over to the Dock Shop, where they have the latest in fishing tackle, marine electronics, boating supplies, and more. But remember, the Dock Shop isn't your average tackle shop. You'll also find the finest selection of nautical apparel, jewelry, home decor, and gifts in New England. Boater, beach bum, fisherman, or simply love the New England coast, this is a unique place to shop. The Dock Shop, 51 Tokenique Road, Darien, 609 Riverside Avenue, Westport, DocShop.com.
For over 25 years, Mike Cizik Painting and Wallpapering has been the name to know for residential and commercial properties in Fairfield County. He uses only the top brands, including Benjamin Moore, for impeccable preparation and lasting quality. Call Mike now and receive $500 off any job over $7,000. Mike is currently accepting reservations for spring, so call him today at 203-770-8869 or 203-972-3310. For your custom painting, finishing, and staining needs, it's Mike Cizik.
I'm John Kovach. I'm a newspaper editor. I'm a high school football coach. I'm a television presenter. And I want you to love fishing as much as I do. Tune in to Yankee Fisherman, Thursdays at 1 on the HAN network. It's like going to the tackle shop without leaving your office.
All right, Doug Smith has made a deal with the devil, and that's why he is forced to appear on our show every Wednesday. He's joining us now for a segment we like to call Drawing Conclusions. Doug, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And as an English major nerd, I was super excited to see that all of your cartoons this week, many of them have a little literary reference going on.
Literary figures in history. We're going to touch on that. And like in the beginning there, we had that little Foss thing going on.
So, I like it very much. All right.
They didn't want the soul after all, though.
Who would? It's kind of useless, right? All right. Well, let's see what we have up first. Tell us about this one.
This is Shelton this week. The farmer's market is now open, so we did like a stock market with the farmer.
I like it. Turnips for sale. And up next, what's this one about?
This is in Ridgefield. They got the open space ordinance going on. People are chopping down trees without checking with the town, chopping down town property, putting up sheds where they shouldn't. And they figured if they start doing a stiff fine, or at least making them aware of it, it might curb that a little bit.
I like the
Bad time to be a lumberjack in Ridgefield.
Well, Aquarian again offering their discounted rain barrels, and I like you imagining what the rain barrel could be used for. Do people actually do that? That's terrifying. If you've ever been to Niagara Falls, man, I can't imagine going down it in a barrel.
What about over at Trap Falls Road here in Shelton?
But here we're getting into our literary
stuff. Here we go with King
stuff.
Lear. I love you. You're such a Shakespeare fan. I didn't know. Very cool.
But the Stratford Shakespeare Theater, they want to resume talks on it again, so we have Lear out there with his fool rallying at the storm like...
Right, as the Stratford Stage Group, Very cool. And then we have some Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Victor Hugo there.
And this is for the Ringers' 10th annual concert, May 22nd. What paper was this for? In Weston, right?
Yep.
Sorry for handbells only. I like it. Sherlock Holmes? What's Sherlock Holmes looking into?
I believe this was Milford. The school budget, the parents wanted to know just what was going on with the money at the time. They didn't know and they couldn't account for it, so...
It's like Capone's vault.
And the next one's my favorite.
Yes.
The Little Eye of Sauron. Yep. Tell us about this one.
They had a license plate reader last year. They started in New Canaan, and people thought it was kind of a Big Brother type thing. That once they read the plates, they could know everything about them, or if they had any priors, things like that.
Right. I'm sure not many people would compare New Canaan to Mordor, but hey,
and then we have a little, again, Stratford Shakespeare Theater. We had, this is Richard III. What happened, when they started revamping the theater volunteer group, the mayor, who some feel was against fixing up the theater, just wants to sell the property to developers, he put a lock on the door and won't let them in there.
I love this one. Very clever, Doug. Tell us about this.
Ode to Alfred Lord Tennyson there, the poem The Charge of the Light Brigade, but in Ridgefield they had a white officer.
I love this.
And here we have a little bit of Raymond Chandler or Nicky Spillane.
I remember this
was
one.
the Frogtown burglaries going on.
Burglary, yeah. This was a few years ago when I was editor in New Canaan.
So we got Tadpole on the case there, the hard-boiled dick.
The police department really liked this this cartoon, I remember.
And what about this one,
And then that was a metal, recycling metal, and I believe that was New Canaan.
Oh, scrap metal,
I'm sorry,
right,
Easton,
getting rid of it.
Staples School. So as a literary, and then we have Maurice Sendak, of course.
Yes.
Oh, love that one.
What?
Little nod to his work.
And that was where I get all my literary references from.
I was just talking about Cliff Notes recently.
Classics,
Do kids
comics,
still
one-up
use
notes,
them? Do
Cliff
they
Notes,
still exist?
they sure do.
They have Wikipedia now, right?
Oh, I know, man.
You have to
it's
pay
so much
$2
easier
for it.
Oh, yeah.
All right,
many
well,
a term paper with those.
You've
so.
learned a lot from Cliff Notes, so we
Yep.
appreciate you bringing that knowledge to us. Doug, thanks as always
Thank
for
you.
joining us. We're going to wrap things up on this week's edition of CT Pulse. Josh, we're off next week because it's going to be a huge broadcasting week on the sports side.
Yeah, we have 9 games in 7 days starting this Friday, FCX playoffs, starting with baseball quarterfinals on Friday, lacrosse on Saturday, and then baseball, lacrosse, boys and girls all week long until
no
Thursday.
CT Pulse.
Yeah, total
Hold
sad
back.
face. I'm really disappointed.
Sad
Kate.
face.
Yeah.
And if you missed anything, of course, you can watch this on demand at HAN.network. Thanks again to Christine Stewart for joining us. We're going to wrap things up. Nutmeg Sports coming up at 2 and baseball at 4 o'clock today. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Bye.